Welcome back to everyone's new favorite podcast, Clear the Mechanism. Once again, I'm with the one and only Coach Gonzo, and I'm very excited to actually have this one be published for you guys. We had a couple of technical difficulties in the past, but at the end of the day, it's like it was growing pains on both sides, and I'm just excited that we're finally going to be able to share this not only with each other again, but also just with kind of both of our fan bases and the people that love and support us. Coach Gonzo, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back, man.
No, absolutely. So I know there's a lot of different things that you've done within your life, within the coaching realm, within kind of the playing career that you've had, things like that. If you kind of want to just go into detail in those different types of things, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 2008, and I played junior college baseball at Southwestern Oregon Community College, and was there for 2 years. After that, I actually ended up transferring out, and I went to Pittsburgh State University in Kansas, played there for 2 years, and when I was done, I was very fortunate enough to have a little bit of a stint in Mexico and play some pro ball down there, and did that for as long as I could. Decided to get back into coaching, or start my coaching career, I should say, and ended up going to a Division II school, Wisconsin Parkside University. I was there for 2 years. From there, went over to Carthage College and had the ability to actually coach under a Hall of Fame coach, Augie Schmidt, who is an amazing man, an amazing coach, and I can never say enough about him. Was there for coaching for him for 4 years. Made the move because of COVID. And COVID kind of uprooted my family, uprooted our lives, as a lot of people, it kind of happened around that time. Came down to Fort Scott, was the pitching coach, recruiting coordinator for Fort Scott, and was there for a year after that. My last stop in the college realm was at Pittsburgh State University, where I was there for a year as well. After that, between being married, having 2 kids, and not being able to make enough, as so many college coaches understand and know. It was time to try to set down some roots for my family, set down some roots for my kids, be around a little bit more. And I took the job as the pitching coordinator at McIntyre Baseball Academy here in Kansas City. I was there for 4 years. And recently, over the last 6 months, I've gotten enough courage to go out and do my own thing. And I've been kind of doing this, GSP thing, Gonzalez Sports Performance by myself. And by the grace of God, things have been great. I've been able to at least, be a present father, be a present husband, make sure that my kids are taken care of. And really, that's about the only thing that matters to me. And I just hope to continue to grow this and continue to help people out.
I think there's just so much intentionality when you speak. Everything that you speak on, everything has a purpose. And I think that's the beauty of those really, really high level coaches. That's kind of how they approach it. And so with that being said, there's a lot of different people now that we see that have played at the college level who are now kind of getting into this, and not really just as college coaches, but also these kind of one-off opportunities, or, hey, I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to do it this way and be my own boss. Within that, what do you think are some of the steps that have kind of led you in that direction through your playing career? And how do you feel like that kind of connects all that together?
Man, that's a great question, because the first thing I thought of was being genuine. Like, I think the hardest part about what we do as college coaches is a lot of this stuff is out of our hands. Like, with what happened with the portal and the amount of money that's going into college coaching, like, a lot of this stuff is very unsustainable. Like, guys are just like players, are hopping from program to program, chasing the almighty dollar. And as a consequence, a lot of times, not for most, not for a lot, but majority of the time, development has now taken a back seat to just finding someone else that can do it. And dude, if that's how things were when I was coming up as a player, I would have never played. I mean, I was undersized. Like, no one took a chance on me except for one dude that saw that I could pitch. I just flat out pitch. Even though I couldn't throw hard, I could locate, I could change speeds, I could do those things. And nowadays, guys like me, they don't even get a shot. And it's hard, man. It is what it is. And part of me was just like, that doesn't settle well. And what I want to be able to do is be the person that helps guys try to find their way to becoming the best version of themselves as players. And ultimately, that's what made me step away from college baseball, because I didn't want to just give up on dudes. And I get it. Like, we got to win. If you don't win, you lose your job. If you don't win, you don't get recruits. It's a domino effect, man. It's such a hard thing to balance. And that's why I don't envy college coaches, man. Like, it's a awesome job, but it's so hard. It is so hard. And I get to the point in my own life and career where, like, as much as I love being on the field and I love competing with the team next to me and going to go get a win, I wanted to be more involved in the player development side so I could help guys understand like what goes into winning, what goes into being a better mover, what goes into understanding how to read things on the field that are going to help you win ball games. Because a lot of times, it's easy as a coach to just give out a blanket statement, go compete. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are you looking for? What goes into being a really good competitor mentally, physically, to be able to go, hey man, I'm going to turn my brain off and go because I've practiced it so many times. And a lot of it comes down to your ability to find out who you are as a player. What do you bring to the table? What are you really good at? Am I a vocal leader? Am I a leader by example? Am I a guy who needs to like get in somebody else's face? Am I a guy that needs to pass someone on the ass and tell them like, hey, like this is how we do things, And it's, for me, I just found more self-fulfillment and trying to help guys find their way to being really good players mentally and physically on this side of things without being, too tied down to the wins and losses. Do I miss that part? Yeah, dude, because nothing gets my blood boiling more than like getting out there and trying to win, man. It's amazing. But sitting back as a coach and watching your player go out there and watch that light bulb go on at the very end and go, man, he's figured it out. Like, that brings me more joy than anything else. Like, dude, like that dude's got it. He's figured it out. Like, let's go. Like, now we can go focus on other things because he's learned how to compete. He's learned his own process and what helps him get into that mental mindset of what it feels like to be a really good competitor and go from there. But yeah, man, I think between my time as a college coach and getting to the point at the end of my career and looking at what can I live with and say that I've done the best that I could as a person to help other players. Like, I just felt like if I stepped away from college coaching and I got more into the private sector, I felt like my reach could be more instead of just one program, trying to help as many guys as I possibly could within reason, right? Like, I don't want to stretch myself thin, but the guys that come to me, I want to be able to give them the best version of myself as a coach, as a mentor, as a person to help guide them.
There's so many levels beyond the field of not only from a kind of personality perspective of really getting to know that athlete. And a lot of coaches, unfortunately, and you've seen it a lot, right? Especially at the college level, they can say, oh, yeah, culture this, culture that. We're big on culture. And then they get on campus and you're like, yeah, you got 95 guys. Like, sorry, that's not always going to be that way. Like, so within that, there are these different types of levels of, hey, how do I approach this type of guy? And you do a really good job within that of not only getting to know them, but their families, understanding. I know we've had conversations in the past where there's been mound visits. I went out mid-game and I've given him 1990 movie reviews because he thinks too.
Yeah.
And he knows who he is. I hope he's listening. Not going to give him a shout out, though. But within that, there's just so many levels that people are never going to see unless you're actually with them in those types of situations. Like us as coaches, we've seen them cry. We've seen them go through things emotionally. Everyone else has just seen the physical piece on the field. And then if the physical piece on the field does not translate, it's like, oh, this guy's terrible. You don't know what's going on in his mind. And we're kind of the mediator within that. And I think we have to not only be that kind of guiding force or that guiding light, not only from a spiritual perspective because of the graces God has given us, but at the same time, from a leadership perspective, we have to attack it in that way too. And like, how does this guy tick? And then once we do that, everything else is incredibly easy.
Yeah. I agree too, man. It's like, with the amount of information that's out there, between guys that post stuff online, YouTube, whatever the case may be, like, never have we come across a crop of kids that have been so talented, but also so disconnected from the game and how they view themselves. I almost felt like towards the end of my career when I was in college coaching, I I felt more of like a counselor than I really did a baseball coach. And it's like you kind of get thrust into that a little bit as a coach. It's like you got to learn how to talk to a player. Like, how do I approach him? How do I approach this person and try to get the most out of them? How do I help them dissociate between what's going on in their personal life and help them turn it off when they get to the field, you know? Or like, how do we get him to be able to put his best foot forward, dealing with these things off the field and be able to understand like, hey, like as your coach, I care about you as a person. And I know as a baseball player, it's going to be there, but let's take care of you as a person first. And I know that the athleticism, the physicality, the commitment will be there if I can get you right, with whatever's happening at home, whether it's, a school thing, a family thing, heck, even a girlfriend thing. I mean, we hate to say it, but it's true, and if we can help our athletes learn how to regulate their emotions, understand how to take those things and be able to compartmentalize and understand that baseball is baseball, and I can leave my thing at home, just be at the field, and also be able to go to my coach if I need a person to talk to, that I know that he's going to understand and help me through whatever that may be if I don't have someone at home to talk to. So I mean, I think it's a huge piece to coaching now.
Within that too, based off of all these different types of personalities, especially, like, we're incredibly blessed because a lot of the guys that we work with, respectfully, are some of the weirdest people that have ever walked the face of the earth.
Pitchers.
But especially left-handed pitchers.
Yep.
Guilty, but we understand what works for us and things like that. But within that, there's different types of roles within the pitching staff. You have your starters, you got your middle relievers, you got your long relievers, you got your setup man, you got your closers. Within that sometimes can get pigeonholed of, hey, you're only good if you're good in this situation. Within that, and kind of being mostly out of the pen within your career, how did you kind of feel like from a, hey, I'm ready to do these different types of things perspective, this is how I know I need to go about this to have this type of success, but when you're working with an athlete that's a starter, how do you kind of relate that between the two?
So, in high school, I started mostly. When I went to junior college, I was a little out of the bullpen. I started a lot. And when I got to Pittsburgh State, it was like solely out of the pen. And I was really lucky. It wasn't one of those things where it was like, as soon as I got to college, it was like, hey, this is what you are now. Like, I was given the opportunity to figure it out my freshman year and, fight for a starting role and still stay as a starting pitcher. And once I got into my sophomore year, the coaches started asking me like, hey, are you open to the idea of coming out of the bullpen? And, I grew up in an era where you just never questioned your coaches. And I was just like, yeah, like whatever you guys need, like I'm in. And within that, I had to learn what was necessary within my routine and what was fluff. And I think a lot of times guys that are making that transition from being a starter, having all the time in the world, being perfect at their routine, they are starting to find out like what is truly necessary to get me ready to throw a baseball and what is not. And I remember my routine as a starter. I mean, would go through bands. It started like plyos are brand new back then. Like I started doing plyos, I started doing wrist weights. It's like boom, boom, boom. Next thing I knew, it was like 40 minutes. I haven't even picked up a baseball yet. And my coach just started asking me, it's like, hey, like we love that you're doing this stuff, but like how much of it is truly necessary? Like you've made it through this point in your career. Like we want you to look at your routine and pick 5 things that you really, really like and be able to crunch it down just a little bit and to their credit, they were right. They noticed that I was doing too much. And part of that became more of a crutch than it was me actually getting ready to throw. And it was like, I need all these things. Like, no, you don't. Like, you need a couple of things to get your nervous system correct. You need a couple of things to get your patterns moving, and then pick up a ball and go do it, And when I made that transition to the bullpen, I went from like 10 different things to 5 things. And then from there, I started to cut it down even more. I was like, okay, like I started to become the guy that got called upon when things were going bad. And so even at that point, it was like, okay, like I started to learn how to look at the innings and understand, is this my role? This is not my role. Am I getting ready now? Am I not getting ready now? And having that clear communication between the coaching staff, knowing what my role was, it was easy to look at that spread on the scoreboard and say, it's 5-3, this is my lane. Or if it's 11-2, it's like, this isn't my lane. And I would start getting things ready. Like maybe in the third or fourth inning, I'd head down to the bullpen and I started doing like my bear crawls, my 90-90s. And it's like, I got to do this stuff anyways. This is part of who I am in my routine. So if I get this done and I don't go in, no harm, no foul. I got my work in for the day. But if I am getting called upon, this stuff is done. And as soon as my coach said, hey, get Gonzo hot, I knew I had 3 minutes. And I always told my coaches, like, if I could sit down with them, and we did this one day, it was like, how long does it take you to get hot? And we practiced this. It was like, everyone did this at our junior college. So we sat down and our coaches were like, hey, like we're doing something a little unorthodox, but we need to know who we can count on and get ready in a pinch. We don't want you guys to feel like you rush. We don't want you guys to feel like you have to get ready as fast as possible. We just need to know who can get it done within 5 minutes, who can get it done within 3 minutes, who needs a little more time, right? And then we can look at your routine and say, hey, can you cut this out? Can you cut that out? Maybe you can get ready faster, do this or that earlier. We had us down to basically a science out of the bullpen when I played there. Was like, hey, like certain dudes were doing certain things at certain times. So it's like, hey, if I call on the radio from the point I call to the point I start this stopwatch in 3 minutes, Gonzo's going to be ready. I don't have to look down. All I have to do is look at the stopwatch, 3 minutes. All right, he's in the game. He's ready to go. So it was really cool to have a coaching staff that understood that and was willing to take the time out of practice to figure out who needed what and what those routines looked like.
If only we had the roadmap of exactly when things were going to go haywire as coaches, it would be 10 times easier.
Yeah.
And I know that was a conversation that I had too when I was a starter. Like, I mean, I'm not proud to say it, but my warm up was an hour and 45 minutes. And what I did within that was a lot of mental training. But then what I did was I translated that to where I did that on the bus ride instead. And instead of having it be through all that time period, I would actually do all that and get that ready on the bus. And my senior year, I went a little bit too crazy on it. There's 3 videos that I rotated from. The Kobe speech where he's sitting down at the TED Talk, the Matthew McConaughey Grammy speech, and then Golden Globe speech. Grammys is his music. And then the third one was Eric Thomas, if the family one, though. Like, if you're not able to get through this, what's your family going to do? Yeah. And within those 3, there's those 3 kind of pillars within those where it's like, okay, no matter what the job is, you got to get it done. So why would I put myself under these type of parameters and feel like, hey, I'm giving myself this much time when in reality, I don't have this much time. I'm giving myself this much time, but I'm not prioritizing this time. So like, even my senior year before starts, I would still shag for the first 2 groups of BP. Now that's not common, but I enjoyed it because I felt like that's where I was getting athletic. I already did a lot of my movements, so I wasn't worried about pulling anything. I'd even walk around barefoot and I'd ground for about 45 minutes. I didn't care, but yeah. I knew what worked for me. And once I had those conversations with my coaching staff, even though that maybe in the beginning they didn't 100% understand, but they asked me really good questions of why do you do this? And then I had that answer. And I think I'm sure that's how you approach everything that you do too. If they give us that why, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, then yes, let's keep it. Now, if they go, hey, I have an hour 15 and I can't explain a single thing of that, you probably have a 15-minute warm-up.
Yep. That's it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about is just time management, man. It's like, hey, like how well can I manage my time to get the most out of myself, not burn myself out, and let's get ready to go.
Within that, though, there's a difference between, as we kind of already touched on it, was absolutely need it and something that's, I love the word that you use by using the word fluff. I think that's really good within that type of situation and like, okay, is it a need or is it just something? And within that, there's a lot of different people who are kind of going into kind of that more motor preference perspective and understanding actually how an athlete moves and we're teaching based off of how they move instead of, hey, this is the mechanic that you need to do. We're asking them to feel it out, and then if it feels right, that's probably right. And within that, how do you kind of approach that from a movement perspective, at least as kind of a starting kind of force?
So, I mean, let's say we take a guy who's a little bit more over the top. If his motor preference is to be more north to south, it's like, okay, like I start asking questions like growing up, what other positions did you play? Did you play outfield? Did you play third? Like what drove this athlete to move this way? Was it a motor preference that he learned to get the task done of throwing a baseball? Or was this a learned habit from being taught? Right. And this is where being able to talk with the athlete is big. Like, why do you move the way you move? Is it because of, is this a learned habit from coaching? Or is this a learned habit from how your body had to sequence and figure it out to actually get the task at hand done, right? So, like, for example, today I had a kid that came to me and I just posted about him on my Instagram, Jalen, and he's a low slot lefty that goes to Barton Community College. I mean, that dude's built like a racehorse. Like, he's got physicality, like out the wazoo, like amazing, right? Now, the big thing with him, and I think he wouldn't mind me talking about him, and when it comes to this kind of stuff, is like, how well can he stay out of his own way? And I think a lot this falls into a lot of camp with a lot of players is like when you try to force certain things to happen, when you try to force certain movement patterns, try to force certain mechanics, it doesn't feel quite right, right? Sometimes you can feel uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is part of the process. But we also have to understand that, like, if you are a north to south mover, I'm not going to teach you to like really coil, get around yourself and throw. Are you a east to west mover? I might teach you how to like turn double plays to feed that function. If you're an east to west mover, I might have you do some wrong way turns. I might have you do some shuffle throws, like you're a cutoff man at third base trying to throw somebody out at home. If you're a north to south mover, I might have you do some drop steps where it's forcing you to pull down and get through it. I might have you also learn how to, be able to come through a pop up the right way to like really drive that baseball through the ball. It's, well, what can I get you to do as far as the physical execution of the throw to get the feel that you want? It's like, okay, all right. And once we find out what the right thing for that person is, we hammer that home and go, okay, this is why you're doing this. This throw or this drill, this constraint is driving home the idea of what you're trying to feel on the mound. And a lot of times what happens is those guys will have that light bulb moment where it's like, oh, like I'm doing this shuffle throw because I can actually move my pelvis through that frontal plane and I can actually feel myself get my front side out and pull down hard. It's not something I try to chase. It's just something that happens when the pelvis moves through space. It's just something that happens when I just allow myself to freely just move and not think about the pattern itself, right? So that approach to kind of understanding a person's motor preferences, like you have to talk to the athlete first. Learn why they move the way they move. Is it a learned habit? Is it something that they picked up along the way because they didn't get any coaching and that's how they learned to get the throw off? And I think that is the most important piece to the puzzle. That'll help you as a coach put together like the big picture of like, that's why he does what he does because he thinks that's correct, or that's why he does what he does because it was taught to him, and it's just like, if you start there and you understand the athlete's concept behind why they do what they do, then you know which fork in the road to take as a coach. Is this a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? Do I have to teach him something or have him have a better understanding of that concept? Whatever the case may be.
That's why when we go through those different types of self-assessments, that's the main reason why they're so long. First, we want to understand how they move. Second, while we're understanding how they move, we got to understand how they think. And once we understand how they think, it usually correlates in some way, shape, or form with how they move. And the beauty about that is it's just now starting to connect. There's a lot of people who are now going that way. And within that kind of realm, and obviously it's still being somewhat newer, thinking in those types of priorities at least, there's not many people who are gravitating towards that side who have been incorrect, which is the beauty of it, because it's not us teaching, it's us understanding. It's us becoming teachers. And once we understand how that's going on, and we can translate that into their language, that's when success will happen. I might be able to give a cue to a million guys. You might be able to give a cue to a million different guys. Only one of those cues is going to stick, because it's how does he interpret that cue.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's it. It's like, what can I say that's going to help him understand? You know, and some guys can compartmentalize and have more of those internal cues and be like, yeah, okay, I get that. Like, I don't have to overdo it. And then there's other guys that, like, if you give an internal cue to, it's like rocket science. Like, they start overdoing it. It's like, nah, man. Like, I need this guy to just focus on executing the task at hand and learning how to just let it happen. And it's funny. It's like you get guys like that have almost like, and this has happened way more now than it ever has in the past. I've had a lot of athletes recently come to me from all over the Kansas City area, and a lot of these guys have had really good coaching. Like, there are like awesome coaches in this area, but the thing that I find is like they get way too much information that is half explained, and they're just like, they're lost. And it's like, all right, we're going to take all this, we're going to strip it away from you, and we're just going to go play catch. Like the other day, I had a kid who came to me, and this dude is going to be special. I really think, like, he's a converted shortstop who's going to be on the mound and like just flicks 88 to 91. And I asked him, I was like, okay, like, what did you work on before? And like, he gave me a whole like list of things. I'm like, okay. I stopped listening after like 5 minutes. Like, and I wasn't doing that to be rude. It was just like, this is too much, And then I asked him, hey, how many positions are on the field? It's like 4. I'm like, 4? He's like, oh no, it's 5, 5, 5, 5. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, yeah, well, you got the infielders and you got the catcher. I'm like, what about the pitcher? He goes, what about the pitcher? I'm like, aren't you on defense as a pitcher? He said, well, yeah, but you're a pitcher. I'm like, no, dude, this is what you have to understand. You are getting the opportunity to throw the baseball because you're a really good athlete. You are a really good thrower, and you're allowing yourself to move like an athlete, and you're just happening to do it on the mound. What I don't want you to do is, now that you're making this transition into pitching, is to move like a pitcher, or move like you have to move in a certain way because you're putting pitching in this own separate box. It's like, no, dude, you're a really good mover. You are really good at what you do. Let's go ahead and take all those intangibles that you had that are untouched, that are raw, take it to the mound, learn how to move through space on the mound. And then from there, we're going to look at like one or two things, look at how this is translating on the mound, and let's attack this one or two things. And now from here, like, let's let it ride. But what we can't do is look at the mound and say, this is its own thing and everything else behind is something else. Like, and that's to me, I think, has been the biggest culprit of getting guys that are domed up, thinking too much, doing too much, is because they're treating pitching as if it's its own separate thing. It's like, dude, no, man. I may be in defense, but I'm on offense on the mound. But the most important thing is, like, I'm still part of that infield. I am still an infielder. The only difference is I'm starting with the ball. And if I look at pitching from that lens, then I'm not caught up in trying to be perfect with my mechanics. I'm not caught up and trying to like time things up, do this, do that. All of a sudden, we start to find this degree of freedom with the way that we move. And then we can look at that stuff later, right? But in the moment when I'm pitching and I'm competing, I can just go compete instead of thinking about being perfect with every little thing that I do, and then letting my brain get in the way of everything that I'm capable of doing.
The funniest part about all of that is, if we look back over the last 10 to 15 years, all the guys who we thought were weird for doing all these different things are now some of the most respected guys in the game. So, like, even now that they're retired. So like I think of Strowman's workouts back because that man is the definition of the most aerial athlete I've ever seen in my life. And then I think of Lincecum and just those two guys in general, like both of them unorthodox things, both of them training is different. And then we can even break it down to football and what Troy Polamalu was doing with kind of reflex stuff, and everyone's like, what are you doing? And then you see him on the field, you're like, oh, so there's got to be some merit to that.
Yeah, dude, I am a huge fan of the Mark Miravinovich stuff. Like that guy's on to something there. And I actually started doing some of that stuff with, you'll see his jersey in the back. It's Carson Seymour. Like, dude, and that's the thing is like when you start looking at the reflexive patterns of how guys move, like we started doing a lot of sandball stuff, water ball stuff, and on the Swiss ball, like, dude. And here's the thing, that's not for everyone, depending on who and where they're at in their career. Carson is 6'7", 6'8", 280 pounds. Like that dude doesn't need to get stronger. And we started doing stuff with like the reflexive reactive stuff. And it was insane, dude. Like his ability to move faster, his ability to just like accept and redirect energy when he was pitching and throwing, like everything got better. Like his force output got better. His ability to change direction got better. It was like, sorry, when you said that, I got excited because I was like, dude, the Mark Marinovich training like model of what Troy Polamalu did, like there's not enough credit given to that type of training. And an athlete needs to be ready for it, right? There needs to be a base of strength. There needs to be a base of understanding of pattern work and movement. But when they get that, it's like, okay, like let's start to integrate this system into like getting the brain and the central nervous system firing at a fast rate and being able to like understand how that works. Because if I can get a guy to be reactive and reflexive, that's what pitching is. Things are happening so fast in such a tight window. You don't have time to think. And if you can learn to be reflexive and reactive, it just goes.
That's why there's so much more emphasis on the idea of isometrics and understanding how my body is in space. And I think you do a really good job of describing, hey, your body is this in space. What do you feel? And why do you think that is? I think that's one of those things where within that first conversation, I was able to kind of look back and be like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of similarities on the way that both of us do things. Obviously, we have different types of ways that we go about it. But if we really look at the key concept within all these types of opportunities, it's, hey, how do you move? Do we understand how you move? Do you feel good when you move? I don't care if you move like a top and you feel like crap. Like, there's a problem there. And it might come out of your hand 90, but when is that ball, when it comes out of your hand 90, going to be too much stress on that part that's already been hurting?
Absolutely.
And within those types of things, it's like everyone wants to see that type of number. It's all number based now. I know both of us, we have very similar stories. I came into high school at the end of, as a senior, I was 74, 76. By the grace of God, I had one opportunity. I took that opportunity, and somehow by the end of my career, I hit 89.4 in the Northwoods. So I know it's possible. Now, the hard part within that is, okay, I understand how I needed to do that. Now, how do I rewire that into a guy that's, hey, he's 6'3", he's 6'4". I have to figure out how that guy moves. Once I figure out how that guy moves, if it's the same aerial or terrestrial ideas, then I can impact it. If not, then I have to figure out, hey, okay, so we just have to do the opposite. Once we do the opposite, okay, how many guys within my circle, within my team move like that? Now I'm going to put those guys together to learn from one another, from watching one another. And that's the biggest thing that no one does anymore within a practice setting, especially on the pitching side. When both of us were growing up, and I'm sure in college, and you saw it all the time when you were a pitching coach, everyone cares about what they're doing because they're self-centered individuals. No matter if they want to tell you they're the nicest guy on the face of the earth, everyone's trying to do that certain job. No one's trying to help one another, especially in the starting rotation. You're not going to see the three try to help the one. You're definitely not going to see the one try to help the two in most situations. So within that, there's so much that you can learn. You don't have to speak it. You just have to watch it. like our eyes are so important. And I think that's what, sorry for going on a slight tangent, but I think that's what the University of Iowa does very, very well with their hitters is Coach Heller was one of the first guys that really implemented the ideas of kind of reactive training with the eyes and understanding all those different types of things from different types of eye doctors. And I've had conversations with him and I've seen different types of actual interviews that he's had within that. And it's like, okay, so if that's so significant, why is that still overlooked? Like that was 15 years ago and there's still only like 4 or 5 people talking about it. We're talking about the Troy Polamalu thing now, and that was 20 years ago. So like there's things that work, things are showing that they work, and there's guys who are doing it even at a higher clip now. I think 108 Performance is very, very successful right now within that. David West with whatever he's doing over there with his proprioception stuff is it's out there, but it's getting results.
Yeah.
So like, why are we hating on these different types of ideas if they're getting what they need to for that type of athlete? Like those are guys that understand how their athletes need to move. And when we adapt that, that's when we're going to have success, not by understanding, hey, I understand pitching. No, I understand movement. I understand how they move. And once we do that, everything's going to come full circle.
I think we talked about this last time was like, as a pitching coach, especially guys now that are really invested, like you're more than just a pitching guy. Like you almost have to have a really good understanding of this human movement and pattern. And I think this is a big deal because when you look at movement patterns, and that I think we talked about this last time, was like I try my best not to say pitching mechanics and just think more like patterns. Like as a pitching coach, you have to have an idea now. At least I think, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like if I was still in that setting, I need to have at least a little bit of an idea of strength conditioning, have a good idea of movement patterns. And those two things, coupled with my experience as a coach and as a player in baseball, will help round me out as a coach. And it can't just be like, hey, this is what I did as a player. This is what you're going to do because it worked for me, right? Like, I feel like those kind of guys you're seeing less and less of. You're seeing more of the guys that are really invested into understanding human movement and pattern, and how does that affect all of the guys on my staff, and how can I help each individual learn what kind of mover they are, right? And you talked about aerial and terrestrial. Like, I mean, Zach Gallen, like he's the easiest, like he's an aerial, like it's easy to say that, right? And then you got guys like Spencer Strider, who is terrestrial. It's like, okay, like why? And you look at the way they're moving and look at the way they're built, man. Like Zach Gallen barely has a torso. His hips are high. Like, he's got a tall backside. He stays through it. He still rotates downhill. Like it's all there. It just looks different, right? And that's where it's like, as a coach, like you look at that and go, that works. Why change that? And just because it doesn't look a certain way, just because it doesn't maybe have a certain like movement pattern to it, like me as a coach, that's where I have to learn to step away and not let my ego get in the way and say, well, he's wrong. I'm right. He needs to move this way. It's like, no, dude, like look at his data, look at the way he moves, ask how he recovers, ask how he's doing day to day. And if all that is lining up and there's no pain, he's moving efficiently, the numbers are consistent, his ability to recover and bounce back is there, why mess with it? If you want a certain thing out of a player as a coach, go recruit that and don't change something that's already good and try to make it something else.
Yes, there's no reason to have a guy adapt to your system if it's a certain system when he's already having success. Bring that into your system to make it more of a complete system. Yeah. And I feel like there's so many coaches now, and you even see it when recruiting, and you see guys, they're like, oh, okay, this guy I don't feel like would fit in my program for this reason. Well, everyone can fit into a program for the most part. The only reason that I would ever cross a guy off my program is if I go to a showcase, he's walking. If I go to a showcase and he goes to his mom and he does not say thank you. If he goes up to a coach and the first thing that he says is, are you a Division I program? I saw that this weekend. There was no Division I programs there. So I don't know what he thought was going on. But it's things like that. It's like everyone thinks that if it's not Division I, it's a bust. Like There's multiple people every year. There's at least your upper echelon guys. I bet there's 100 guys minimum that go on and play some type of semi-pro after a Division III program.
Mm-hmm.
And no one cares about that because, it's not the big leagues. Oh, it's not this. Oh, it's not that. Yeah, but they're still playing. Like, if you had that opportunity and you weren't, quote-unquote, shitting on it, you would take that opportunity. But because it's not you, that's why you're saying those things. Like, we'll go into it again because I hate this. Someone grabs a 4-seam or a 2-seam, and their youth and their hands are this far apart on this darn thing. This is a split finger. As much as people don't want to say it, this is a split finger. This for us is that.
Yeah.
So, once again, not saying fingers have to be together. All my renegade guys look at me crazy. All my guys in college look at me crazy. I go, watch how well it spins. Watch how you actually get on top of the ball. And you can get ride. You never had ride before. And then you get a guy who's top of the zone, and he's like, oh, it's staying on plane. I go, yeah. Because from here, where do you think the inertia is going? It's going to both sides. But if from here, I'm throwing it through. And same thing. It's like usually the braking stuff gets better too because they understand where their hand is in space. Not just the body, understanding where the hand is in space.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden, that leads into, spin axis and understanding how that affects your spin rate and everything else. Like, yeah, 100%.
And then within that too, like you can feel, hey, I got this seam on this. Or, hey, I did not. And especially with all these different types of pitches, and now they're being... I'm not huge on that. I think there's 13 different types of sliders or curveballs. I understand what they're trying to say. I don't think it's as deep as that. I think we just need to understand how the pitch moves based off of how the athlete moves, and that's how the metrics match up. It's not... okay, this guy did this and this and this and this and this and this revolves. No. Now, obviously, there's outliers. Like, we've talked about it. I spun the ball above average, and I think that's the only reason I had success, and I truly believe that. So I thank God for my longer fingers being a shorter guy, because I was able to spin at 2,600 on the heater, which is not very common. So that's nice. But at the same time, it's like, once we have and understand how those guys move, it's then we go into the mental side of things of, hey, how do we attack hitters? Hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? And within those different types of things, how do you think movement patterns affect them kind of understanding the game as a whole? And how do you kind of teach that, or how do you go about that when maybe, hey, they do have that type of failure, but everything else was right on the mechanical?
So one of the things I really like to do, and there's a couple of different types of bullpens I would run with my players. And one would be just your standard bullpen, kind of go through your stuff. I always tell the guys, first set is yours, second set is mine. Okay. What that means to you is that your first set of 15, run through your stuff, get your feel good stuff out of the way, right? Work your patterns, do your thing. Now, this next set, you're going to turn your brain off. And the first bullpen was like that last second set of 15, we're setting up hitters. And I would have guys stand in and on purpose show me different takes. Like I would tell guys, like I would stand behind the pitcher, hitter in the box, and I would go 1. That means give me a well-balanced take. 2, I want you to now bail early. 3, I want you to give me a fake swing through like you're late. Okay. Based on their reaction, I would ask the pitcher, what are you throwing next? What information did he just give you? Is he well balanced? Is he late? Is he early? Did he show? And in order for us as coaches to help our players learn how to actually see those things, I think it's important to do it in a pen. You can do it in scrimmages and stuff where there's consequences and you can go and do that stuff. But at the same time, those scrimmages are also used to evaluate players and how well they do. So getting them to learn in that environment, there's good things to that. But I like doing that in a bullpen setting where they can learn how to interact and see those things so they can recognize it on the field. And now as a coach, you have this culture that you're breeding where guys are really competing and everyone's level comes up, right? But anyways, getting back to that is like, I would have the guy stand in the pen and like, hey, 5 is show, like whatever. And it's like, okay, like now if I give you 5-5, that means I want you to show and I want you up on the plate. If I go 1-1, I want you in the back of the box and I want you like having a good take. So now this is also work for my catchers too. It's like, oh, like I see where he's standing. I know what he can do. Now we're going to adjust our plan based upon the information that we're gathering from the take and the swing, where he's standing in the box, and my pitcher's best stuff. So we're learning how to do this. That's the first pen I would have. The second pen that we would go into of understanding how a guy would learn how to move their stuff, read a swing and stuff like that would be just tunnel pens. So your first set, as always, first set is yours. Get your feels out of the way, get all this stuff. All right, second set, we're going to compete. Now, this second set, everything works off of the pitch before. There is no design. This is next. That is next. We're spinning this. We're spinning that. No. If you miss up, what are you throwing off of that? Well, I'm going to go breaking ball down because I have a 12-6 hammer. Okay. Throw that. Is that well executed? Yes. Okay. Now I want to go two seam off of that line and be able to learn how to do that. Okay. Awesome. Hey, you missed and you yanked it. What can you throw off of that? Like, well, I can probably go change up or I can probably go four seam off the plate. Awesome. Use that tunnel. So what we're now teaching guys to do is understand, like, you can have a plan, but if it's not executed, that doesn't mean that you're lost. All that means is the roadmap kind of changed, and you can either use that tunnel, depending on how the hitter reacted, or you can go back to your plan A and understand that that plan can still work, right? So the tunnel and the reaction are going to tell you a lot of how you're going to shape out the rest of this at bat, right? The other thing too is that we would, after that, the third set, once guys kind of built up to that, is like, okay, my starters, like my third set is like, okay, your first pitch, you're going to establish that tunnel. Okay. You're going to come back to that tunnel late because you've already put that pitch, that particular pitch, whether it was down and away that you executed, front side slider or backdoor two seam, you've established that tunnel. The hitter has to respect it. Go do something else, change his eyesight, changes, speed, whatever the case may be. But I want you to go back to that tunnel and you're going to do something off of that tunnel. You're either going to throw that pitch again because he has to respect it, or you're going to go back to that tunnel and throw a slider, or you're going to go back to that tunnel and throw your splitter because you've already established it, right? So it's one of those things where us as coaches, like, yes, you have the feel stuff, you have the movement pattern stuff. That's all great. But at the end of the day, we also have to teach our athletes how to be really good pitchers. And part of that is learning how to read a swing, learning how to read a take, learning how to read feet in the box, and also learning how to use your own tunnels and shapes in your arsenal.
Within that, there's so much information that you're able to take from it. Like, if you're able to read a swing and not just read a swing at a surface level, if you're truly able to understand how to read a swing, there are so many different things that you can do off of that. And I think that's another thing that within that you do incredibly well, and not only from a physical perspective, but also from a mental perspective, is, okay, you're teaching the athlete, hey, it's okay not to throw it as a strike.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing them how this is going to work off of this. And I'm reading the body language of, once it's in game, hey, okay, he leaned over and now he's looking outside. Okay, heater up and in, he's going to get chicken winged. Like, it's simple. Like, it's things that we think of, and I know both of our minds go a mile a minute. And I think that's what is also awesome about that too, is even though our minds are going so fast, we can compartmentalize that and kind of break that down into smaller pieces where that athlete's going to understand. So even though we have all this information, and Matt Wood said it incredibly eloquently, was when it comes to the thought process of even movement patterns, right? One of the main guys within that who kind of started that is Coach Swope. And he said that in Coach Swope's mind, there's probably 300 things that he's talking about, but when he regurgitates it, it's simple baseball terms through the lens of what that dialogue needed to be for that athlete. And when we're able to use it from physical, hey, I'm going to hit it this spot, or I'm going to start it here and understand, hey, it moves this way, that's the beauty of the metrics.
Yeah.
It nothing to do with anything of, hey, this is here, this is here. Like, yes, that's awesome. But are we able to use that to have success? Now, the people who truly understand that and are able to have success with it, like when Trevor Bauer breaks down his videos and things like that, he understands how these things work off of one another. So his metrics, and when his metrics are off, he understands, okay, pressure's wrong here. I understand how to do this. A lot of guys are not that kind of bought in within those things. So how are we going to keep that on a simple approach? And within that too is like you're turning it off and letting them compete. And so within that, and I know we've kind of talked about this too, is it's a proven fact when we think about the legs. We completely think about, hey, they're barely getting used. We use them more because what our body is doing, it's reacting. So within that, from a ground force perspective, how do you kind of work that into your programming? And do you feel like it's a different approach between an aerial and a terrestrial mover?
Dude, it's completely different, you know? It's like, when I do the aerial stuff, like I always talk to guys that have that movement pattern where they're a little bit longer to the backside and move. It's like, hey, my only thought process for you is I want you to feel tall through your backside, but still really feel connected through your back foot, like midfoot, and allow yourself to really just move through space. I want you to almost feel like you're gliding. I don't want you to feel like you're trying to send it into your back foot. I want you to get up, get out of your backside, and just send it down. And the only time you're ever going to really feel your lower half is when you get to your block and your front foot gets down to brace you, stops you from moving in that frontal plane, gets you to your rotation and let it happen. And a lot of times guys don't know that they're aerial movers because if you don't know that, like it's hard, right? You get taught certain things and it's like some of these guys, I asked them, I was like, hey, like, are you really good at like getting into the ground? Or do you really feel like you're really good at moving forward? Like, I feel like I'm really good at moving forward, but I need to get better at doing that. I'm like, why? Like every time you try to do that, you're 3 to 4 miles an hour slower. But every time you allow your pelvis to get up underneath you and just let your body move through space, you're consistently upper 80s or you're consistently 85, 86 with really good spin. It's like that is how your body wants to organize and move. So let's treat, if you're an aerial mover, let's treat your back foot as your connecting piece and let's treat your front leg as your ability to absorb energy. That's it. Like, don't read into it anything more than that. Like, allow your pelvis to really do what it needs to do at the end of your throw. Like, you're keeping that thing closed and you're just snapping at the end. Now, that same thought process still works for a more of a terrestrial mover. That's the same. The difference is a guy like that is just going to get a little bit more depthy. That guy may be stronger. He may be thicker. He may be thicker through the rib cage, may be thicker through the waist. He may be a little bit more bulky that he craves that ground connection. That kind of mover needs to get into his backside and maybe he's not going to get as long. Maybe he's going to really, really focus on being a little bit more aggressive through that hip rotation and really think about getting the throw off as quickly as he possibly can because he knows that if he elongates too much, that kind of mover knows that if he tries to push and get up and out of it too early, like he's lost his ability to transfer energy, accept force from the ground, and really get everything he can out of himself.
I really think of my mother in this type of situation because when, especially being a younger guy, like you're, especially a shorter guy, hey, really get into the legs. Like you need to get into the legs. So mom would be hollering from the bleachers, use your legs, use your legs. And so I just laugh now because now understanding it, it's like, okay, yes, I get that I have to use my legs, but actually when I barely hinge, like there's so much data now that shows like for aerial movers, a squat that is barely squatted and keeps you in that athletic kind of motion within your hinge, and you can explode out of that, and you're able to get strong there. Once you get past that spot, you completely cut out. Like there's nothing else holding you because you're turning yourself into a different type of mover. And there's a lot of different colleges who are moving to that. I think of, well, obviously some of the big ones within the exercise science field. Kansas State is huge on it with TCU, obviously. Duke is big on it. Duke's head strength and conditioning coach actually spoke at the ABCA, and that was really, really good. And so you're seeing these different types of things, and you're seeing the type of athletes that are coming out of it. Okay, they're more bouncy. They understand how these things kind of go within these different types of patterns. And within that, too, you spoke on something that talked about, hey, when you get into your legs too much, you drop 6 miles an hour. Say that you do a really, really good job on understanding how that guy moves, and he jumps out of nowhere 5 to 6 miles an hour. And at the forefront, they're like, yes, I jumped 5 to 6 miles an hour. But at the end of the day, like, in certain ways, that's a red flag too, isn't it? So can you kind of explain how you think of those types of kind of red flags?
So that's where the assessment is a huge deal. Like, okay, like if let's say this guy is super strong, right? And this is where the shoulder assessment, the scapular movement, and the ability to have like strong hands and forearms, like are all the pieces that accept and redirect energy, are they strong enough to be able to sustain that and, be healthy when this guy actually starts to put on velocity? Now, let's say he's green on all those, like scapular movement, great. Shoulder, internal, external strength, great. His ability to redirect and the torso, great. All those things are all green. If he jumps 5 to 6, I'm thinking nothing of it. Like, that is awesome. Now, if a guy jumps 5 to 6 and his internal rotation is terrible, his external rotation is very weak, if there is no ability to stretch the pec and it's just like really forced and tight through the bicep and the anterior part of the shoulder, and he puts on 5 to 6, like, hey buddy, that's great, but like, let's go ahead. Like, we now know that you're capable of that. Let's make sure that we get these other things to get better: tissue quality and length, and reactionary movement of that tissue, to make sure that this isn't just something that happens and gets you hurt. This is something that you can do and sustain over a long period of time. And again, that is where the assessment and not guessing is such a big deal now.
Because we have it right in front of us and we can see, hey, these deficiencies are what we really need to hone in on. And if we attack those deficiencies in the way that we need to, then actually when they do jump those different types of miles an hour, it's like, okay, it's because of the process and we did it the correct way, not because little Johnny has 5 throws left in his arm and things aren't lining up and he's going to be out for 9.5 months. But he got 6 miles an hour harder, and in his mind, that's all he cares about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it, man. It's just like, but that's the thing, is like sometimes we have clients and parents that have never been athletes themselves and they don't know. And so like what you said earlier, right? It's like, use your legs, and like they think it looks a certain way, right? Or, it's got to be this or that. It's like, well, like let me explain why maybe like your thought is correct, but what you're seeing is wrong. And this is why. And that's where the educational piece for the athlete and the parent is super important, for them to understand, like, why you as a coach you are taking this approach to their son's movement pattern and quality.
Because we understand it at that type of intricacy idea, where on them, they just see it and they're like, oh, that looks weird. But we understand why. And it's because of the questions that we've asked prior. And so I know we talked about this on our unfortunate episode that did not get to be published because of technical issues, but you have a lot of guys that are kind of in that showcase realm as well and are really trying to go and prove to different types of colleges that, hey, this is what I have right now. And within that, there's a lot of preparation to come into those. A lot of guys don't prepare for them. And we've talked about it. I've seen 5 arms get blown out in the last 2 showcases I've went to. Because they're juniors, it's their last shot. They never took care of their body. They always wanted to play college ball. They shoot it, and then they keep on throwing because they're like, this is all I have. So within your programming, you work backwards incredibly well within that. How do you kind of use that timeline to be as prepared as possible, not only from you from a business perspective, but also from the betterment of the athlete as a whole?
So what I do with all my athletes, especially my high school guys, my uncommitted guys, is I ask them like, hey, what are we getting ready for? Is this completely necessary? Are you doing this just to do it? And does this fit within what you've already done this past spring and summer? Like, are we at the point where you need to shut down? Right. And that's everybody's different, right? Some guys, their backs up or up against it. And it's like, hey, you got 2 recovery weeks and we got to hit this again. You got to go to Jupiter. You got to go do this. You got to go do that. Like, you have no choice because these coaches want to see you throw. It's the fall. This is the only time they can come and see you because come springtime and winter, they're busy. They have their own college guys to get to and they got to get ready for a season. So it's like, okay, like we got to pony up, make sure that we do things right. Like make sure that your movement's there, your mobility is there, your strength is there. It's like, where is your injury risk? Are we at a high injury risk, a low, medium? Like let's get that first. It's like, okay, like once we've assessed that, then we go, okay, we're going to get ready for this showcase in December. We are 17 weeks away, right? Anything before that, if you don't communicate that to me, like I don't care about. I'm getting you ready for that showcase because that's the one that you want to be ready for. That's the one that means the most to you. We are going to work backwards from that date. Now, if you're a guy that's going to 3 to 4 showcases because there's multiple colleges at multiple events, it's like, okay, give me the first one. Now, give me how many weeks in between each one so we know where we need to be, get you ready for that first one. It's like, okay, are these back to back, like weekend to weekend? Like, is it like, do we just treat it as if it's just a game every weekend? Or, are you going to throw this one in November and this next one's in December, at the end of December, and we have time to kind of figure some things out and go from there? It is incredibly difficult, especially with guys that are uncommitted at the end of their junior or senior year of trying to figure this stuff out. And normally what I tell guys is like, hey man, like I know you want to do all these things, but you can't do them all. Like I want you to pick the 2 most important to you. And if you do what you need to do and you go show out your best foot forward at these things, people will follow. And we will continue to do our job through the winter, posting videos, being in contact with these coaches, and so they can see how you continue to progress. So they see like, hey, like this kid continues to work. He's getting better. It's like, I'm still interested. I'm going to come out and watch him play this spring, and if we can continue to do that and make sure that we are putting the athlete's health first and we are going, okay, like this is where you're at. This is where we need to get you ready for and work backwards from that date. It becomes a lot easier to be able to navigate that time. Still one of the hardest things that I think as a coach in this private sector I do year to year is trying to navigate that time of year in the fall after a long spring and a long summer. Now for some guys it's like it's not a big deal at all. Like maybe in the spring they only got 20 innings. This summer they only got like 22, 25. It's like, hey, they're still pretty fresh. Like we can continue to do this and be okay through the fall. But once the winter hits, we're going to have a hard like 2 to 3 weeks of a shutdown time where we're just going to really focus on like movement quality, tissue quality, and be able to get to a really good ramp up through the winter and get you ready for your high school tryouts and all that.
Too many steps to think about if it's not all written down and very broken down into, okay, this is how we need to attack this. And even at the college level, once we get guys on campus, like most of them in the most respectful way possible, they have a plan, but they don't understand by any means how to do the plan on their own. So within that, there's something that I think we do very, very well over there at Crown, and same thing at Renegade is at least from the pitching side of things, I give a packet that has 200 different exercises. And within that, it's like an a la carte menu. And based off of your movement patterns, you pick what you feel the most benefit with. And if you like it, you put a smiley face by it, like my friend, the smiling shark. And then if you don't like it, then you cross it out. And then we go into our favorite app as a coaching staff, ChatGPT, the one and only. And then we make you a specific program based off of that with your favorite graphic or something that's going to resonate with you. So when you look at it, you're like, okay, this is what I have to do this day. This is my breakdown. And within that, if there's something where it's like, okay, this is a little bit too much pressure this week, we can go back and understand, okay, maybe it's a little bit less of an isometric. Maybe we prioritize a plyometric. And from there, it's like, okay, now we have everything written out where if something goes haywire, we can look back at our data, not actual like physical data, but things that we put together and be like, okay, this could be a hindrance. Let's maybe change this a little bit. But at the same time, we understand those things because of, once again, how they move, understand how they are in space, understand how they are as an individual. And when you really get to know an individual like that, it makes it incredibly easy. So
Absolutely.
with how many individuals that you've already been able to work with and all these different types of kids and all these different types of personalities, you have a tremendous blessing that you're a father. How has some of those relationships with your athletes kind of been able to help you within kind of interacting with your kids and understanding, hey, this is how we need to go about these different situations? Not from an athletic perspective, but more of kind of a loving and supportive perspective.
I try not to coach at all. Like, I make everything into a game. And I think we kind of talked about this last time too, is like, as a dad, I want to put them in the best position possible to create the best habits possible, right? And maybe it's like, hey, we're going to go play wall ball and see if you can make your brother die for this and react. Hey, we're going to play wall ball and see if you can throw it off the wall as hard as you can, make him go run for it, and make a diving play. It's whatever I can do as a father, mentor, to get my kids to be reactionary and just let these things show up, and like sometimes they'll look at me like, Dad, how am I supposed to get that? I'm like, you know how? And he goes, I gotta die for it. I'm like, yeah, dude, like we're on grass, you'll be fine. Like you gotta figure it out. And that's the cool thing is like I try to put my kids in the best position possible to learn through the consequences, not learn because I'm telling you what to do. And if you start learning from those consequences, good or bad, your brain starts to make those connections and it goes, this is the movement pattern. This is what I do to do it. And now I'm just going to go do it. Right. And like I have a bucket downstairs and, I have these 3 pins and these cans that are different colors. And I'll put Antonio on the mound and we'll just kind of like mess around. I'm like, okay, you got to keep your eyes on me, buddy. So he's come set. His eyes are straight on me. And I just go green. And he turns around and throws it and he's got to hit the green pin. And it's just like, all of a sudden he's like, Dad, I threw a strike. I'm like, yeah, like how cool is that? Because I didn't even try. I'm like, that's the point, dude. Just do it. It's just like, I'm trying to get them to let these things happen. Let this thing like naturally just come. And as they get older, when they're old enough, when their understanding of how they move is there, and I know for sure that my sons know how to compartmentalize information, I will give it to them when they need to hear it. Now, I have a feeling my youngest is not going to be like that. He's a little thinker. So I'm going to probably keep things at bay for him for a long time and just make him do things without giving him any explanation. Because A, I'm his father and I know how he thinks. And B, I also know that the more information I give this kid, the more he just wants to rattle around with it and ask more questions. It's like, nope, I'm not giving it to you. Like, let's go play ball, And he seems to really thrive in that. Now, my oldest, he asks questions and I'll give him a little tidbit here and there. but it's almost like he forgets it right away. He's like, okay. And then he just goes and does it. It's just like as a dad, like, and as a coach, like that's really cool that he can do that. But I also recognize that not a lot of kids can do that, where he's just very blessed, where he doesn't take that information and overdo it. So, I told you this last time, like Carson Seymour, he used to call me bits and pieces because I wouldn't give him everything at once. And he's like, why don't you just tell me? Just tell me. I'm like, no, dude, like you're on a need to know basis. You're a really good athlete. You're really good at what you do. And until you go through these movements and I hear you ask me, like, well, why did that happen? That felt so good. All right, let's have that conversation now. Because now I know that you felt that. And I know you're starting to understand what your body's doing through space. Now we can have that conversation as to why that's happening. Because I don't want to give it to you right away and like map that in your brain. And all of a sudden you're trying to hunt it and the feel isn't there because you're trying to actively hunt it. I don't know if that makes sense,
No, that was very well put. And it reminds me of a story, and it makes me really happy that I'm able to tell this story. So the big thing about how I at least go about my coaching is I live by the principle of 80-20. Within that, there's a lot of different things that a lot of people don't understand. And I had a guy that I used to play with that I have the utmost respect for. He was a junior last year, and he had that conversation and he prayed a lot about it, and God led him in the direction of now that he's going to be in the position of, hey, he's going to do what's best for his family. He's going to do what's best for him personally. And I couldn't be more happy for him there. And he had this conversation with me, and a couple guys did, and I was able to say this perspective to both of them was, Ryan, I don't want to hang up the cleats, but I don't know if this is my calling anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so within that, I said, okay. So what have I always told you? And he goes, you always gave me the 80. I had to figure out the 20.
Mm-hmm.
Within that, I take it a step further. I go, no, I flip it. You figure out, I'll give you the 20 that you think's the 80. You figure out the 80. And once you figure that out, that's where fulfillment comes from. That's when your fulfillment with not only life, but your fulfillment with Jesus Christ also happens. And I said, if you feel pulled in this direction by your Lord and Savior that you were able to really gain that relationship with through your time here at Crown, he wouldn't just be poking you in the back of the head for no reason. There's a reason that he's telling you that, hey, this was a chapter that you did fantastic on. I'm so proud of you. But it's a season, and that season's ended, and now what does this next season kind of hold? And I know we've had multiple guys in our program do that, and a lot of people on the surface, like when you see guys that decide to go into different types of situations, it's like, okay, they weren't built for it. No, the three guys that I can recall off the top of my head were called for a bigger purpose than that. And now one is he's traveling with all the hurricanes and kind of helping with the destruction within that. Another one is full time on a farm and he's absolutely killing it. Was actually at his wedding a couple months ago. First wedding as a coach. I know we've had that conversation. I'd like to attend over 350 weddings in my lifetime. So I don't know how many suits that's going to entail. That might be a pricey endeavor, but I'm excited for that opportunity. And those opportunities present themselves because of us being genuine, us being those types of people that people want to actually be around. Like, I always felt like I was an outsider because I did things differently, but I've already been offered 2 to 3 different opportunities to be a groomsman at weddings that I never thought I'd be a part of, but I left that impact. It just was never shown from the way that I interpreted it. And by the end of all that, that's God's divine mercy, because there's things that we'll never understand that are going to happen. We don't understand what's going to happen in the next 20 seconds. We truly don't. It's all written, and we all want it to go a certain way, but is it one of those things where say we have a really, really bad heartbreak. And I know we've talked about this. I've been open about this. Like, that really hurt me. And it was one of those things where it's like I knew deep down I was not the best version of myself. And other people are going to argue with me that I was not. And I'll be 100% upfront with that. Once I figured out actually what that missing piece was in my life, and it was continuing to grow my relationship with Jesus, we're back together and we've never been better. And within the next year and a half or so, there's going to be some very big opportunities. And I wouldn't be able to even accept those if it wasn't for my faith and understanding those different types of things as well. Through that beautiful tangent, I hope I was able to kind of connect the dots and be able to kind of have you understand my point of view. So within that, who is Jesus Christ in your life?
Man, that's a really loaded question, man. It's for me, I grew up in the church. My mom has taught Sunday school now for 30 years. And, I think sometimes when you have a child that grows up in the faith that for that long, sometimes you get lost. And as I got older, I got away from church. I got away from doing all that. And, my wife, she brought me back, and I thank her, because a lot of times, and I would say prior to 3-4 years ago, I always looked for fulfillment out of him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like I could never enjoy what I just accomplished because I was looking for the next thing. It was always something else, right? And funny enough, it's just funny how this works. Last Sunday, our pastor was talking about being present with Christ in your moments, and being able to look at these moments and go like, this is what God wants me to do. And with him walking side by side with him, I'll be able to do the things that I know I'm capable of doing for him because of him. And it was a very awakening moment for me, because, he talked about putting the phone down and being able to step away from work. And the funny thing is I was sitting in the lobby of church working, and I stopped, and I was just like, what am I doing, dude? It's like, sometimes I feel like I chase it too much, but it comes from a place of love. I always tell myself that, like, I do it for my family, I do it for my kids. It's just like, yeah, that's great. But I mean, the Lord gives me these opportunities. I have to be able to reciprocate that and understand that the opportunities that have come in my life have been because he's willed it, and he wants me to take those opportunities and be there present with him, but not take those opportunities and put it in front of him. And I've learned that, dude. I have, because, there was a time there where I wasn't going to church enough and I didn't feel as fulfilled. And for me, this is new, and I'm learning to walk with him again. And it's cool because my brother, who's a fireman, he's been through a lot in his life, and it's been hard for him on a lot of fronts in his life. And, to see how he's turned his life around through, all the mental health stuff that he's doing within the fire service and what he's doing now, it's just like, that's not an accident, man. Like, someone is walking with him to help him find his way back to this normal life that he can live, and to me, that's Jesus Christ. And it's been really hard for me to say that out loud, to say like, no, it's not that. It's got to be something else, right? And I'm learning to understand that these are the things that he's putting in my life that he wants me to be good at, to be able to bring myself to him. And that's been really hard. I'm being vulnerable right now, because I'm not going to pretend here and say that I've always walked with him. I'm learning to walk with him. And it's a very hard thing at times, because I don't see it. And sometimes it's hard for me to see it. And then I'm a very controlling person, where it's like, I want to know what's next. I want to know what's in front of me. And through my journey of learning to do this with him, I'm learning to trust. I'm learning to let go. And with that becomes a lot of anxiety that I'm learning to let go of. And it's helped me a lot in becoming a better mentor. It's helped me a lot in becoming honestly, a more present and clear husband and father. And that's, to me, been the best thing about walking with him is like, I'm learning to trust it a lot more, trust him a lot. And it's been hard, but I also think that it's a very necessary thing for me to understand that I'm not in control, that he is. And what I'm doing is because of his grace.
It makes me just reflect on, and I know me and a teammate and also me and our head coach had this conversation actually a couple of days ago, was if a person wasn't meant to be in my life and we were separated for so long and we were able to come back, that's the divine purpose.
Yeah.
And so why would I ever run away from that? And it just, when you kind of know what I do other than coaching, and so I work 40 hours a week at Hy-Vee night stocking, and so I have a lot of time to listen to podcasts and reflect and things like that. And I didn't listen to podcasts for probably the first 6 or 7 months on the while I was working, and I would just listen to worship music and things like that, because like I knew I failed, and I never failed in anything I felt like ever. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, maybe failure's not the right word. It was timing was wrong, and you needed to learn why certain things were happening, and you need to understand the circumstances of when you do things. They do have consequences, and sometimes they are going to kind of go back and bite you when say you do, because I know I was a big trickster and just in on the field and things like that. And definitely some teammates I took some jokes with probably a little further than I wanted to. And then, but I knew we had that type of relationship where at the end of it, I thought it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I truly probably don't know how emotionally hurt that impacted some of my closest friends. And within that, it's like, now they see me and we're close and things like that. And I love that. But let's say we didn't have that type of relationship and I just did that. Like, what type of person am I truly? And
Mm-hmm.
who am I able to separate myself from Ryan, the baseball player, and Ryan, the person? Same thing with now Ryan, the coach, and Ryan, the person. Like, how am I going to be able to be incredibly stern, but at the same time, how am I going to be loving? How am I going to be supportive? How am I going to bring this side of me that everyone loves, and maybe even slightly a bit of, I wouldn't say cockiness, but arrogance, to want to better myself and better the people around me within the sport of baseball, while still giving it from a lens of, hey, God gave me these gifts. God gave me these words to be able to speak. God gave me all these things to be able to articulate in a certain way to actually be able to speak to people. Like, that's 100% my purpose. So why was I shying away from that? And I was meant to do it at Crown, and with if I would have still had my relationship at that time, I would never went back to Crown. So it was the path that he created that brought me back to where I was, and now everything is going very well, and I'm incredibly grateful. But at the same time, it's like I have to I have to keep everything from a lens of with a grain of salt, because I never know if something can go bad, and if I turn into that person again, and I don't want anyone to be around that. And I think without that relationship with Jesus, I mean, I truly don't know where I am. I mean, I know I'm in the same spot.
Yeah.
Mentally, I don't think I'm able to articulate anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I'm coming from that too. I think that relationship and building that, for me at least, everybody's different, but for me, like, I need that. I need something that's going to help ground me, and also just something that I can lean on, because I never really had that. I had it. I walked away from it not knowing what it did for me, you know? So I completely understand what you're saying.
Well, that's kind of all the things that I kind of wanted to cover. There's one thing, and it it's funny that happened to you at church on Sunday. So last Sunday, something came over me too. Was at the end of every one of these episodes, I pray for my guests. Is it okay if I pray for you?
Absolutely.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing Coach Gonzo onto the podcast. Thank you for letting him be very articulate, but at the same time, very compassionate of not only his words, but also his actions, and understanding the true meaning of how movement patterns affect not only the physical sense, but also the mental state of our athletes. And just thank you for all your goodness. Thank you for when we do fall and you kind of protect us. Thank you for all the blessings in both of our lives, seen and unheard. Thank you for bringing all those people that truly love and care about us. Not only the two of us speaking today, but everyone that's also on the other end of watching this podcast in some way, shape, or form. If they have fallen, just help guide them. Don't lead them, but guide them into the direction that you want them to become. And at the end of the day, just make sure everything's for the betterment of you, not the betterment of us. Help us stay incredibly healthy, not only physically, but also mentally. And everyone that is in some way suffering that won't hear this podcast, also use this as an outlet to pray for them as well. Pray for everyone that is going through something around the world, that has been going through, if it's something physical or mental, and they don't want to share with anyone, but they're going through those different things, and the only person that they might have is you. And at the end of the day, even though it's you, it's the most powerful being that has ever lived, and the most powerful being in any of our lives. Pray for my family. Thank you for absolutely everyone that's helped me and guided me within that, and that's because of the grace that you've given them to be able to lead not only my family but also Coach Gonzo's family, and we're just appreciative of everything that you've done for us, and thank you for absolutely all the blessings that have came and all the blessings that are to come. In your sweet and beautiful name, amen.
Amen. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, but do you have anything else that you want to close the podcast with?
No, man, that was perfect. That was it. That's all I got.
Once again, I really appreciate you coming on, especially after kind of the misstep that I probably had on my end and understanding of the growing pains. I truly appreciate it. Once again, it's truly a blessing to have you on and learn from how you approach things. I hope it was something where maybe I didn't only learn things from you, but maybe there was something that stuck out that maybe I said on my end in some way, shape, or form. And if it wasn't for helping each of us, it's helping someone that's listening. And just at the end of the day, I think it's clear that your relationship with Jesus is continuing to build. And I think that's something that you need to continue to lean in on. And I think that's something that you should be incredibly proud of, because many people wouldn't have done and been as vulnerable in a podcast setting. So I think that was really, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important for people to know, like, it's that relationship isn't just going to build itself. Like sometimes it's hard for people. And I'm one of those people, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm trying and I want to be better. And this is where I'm at. And hopefully in, a month from now, I'm better and I'm a better person because of it. And I'm a better father, husband because of it. And I know that this is the right thing to do. And I just need to continue to pursue it.
Once again, folks, my guest today is someone who's going to become a dear friend. I 100% believe that. And so as we kind of shut this down, we're with the one and only Gonzalez, Coach Gonzo, as many of you guys know him as, and we're just very appreciative of you coming on the podcast and excited to see where this kind of continues to grow, not only from a podcast perspective, but just a relationship perspective.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely. This is Coach Ryan Vondracek of Clear the Mechanism. And as always, don't be afraid to be yourself and always rely in your relationship with Jesus Christ. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, man.